All right, how about this setup? It's only me, right? So maybe this is the new vibe. Fuck yeah. Anyways, guys, let's do this. Uh, this video kind of like talks about the theme that's been happening over the past 5, 6 videos. The theme has literally been between listening and hearing. It's like when somebody's teaching you how to think, right? How you learn. It's kind of like a theme that's happening. But the video today, if someone's giving you advice, don't listen to them. They have no idea what they're talking about. It doesn't matter because they're projecting the way they see the world, and it's not fair. If someone is offering you a perspective, then at least you are a part of the transition slash the change. So let me try it again without giving my opinion before I read the whole thing. If someone is giving you advice, don't listen to them. They have no idea what they are doing. If someone's offering you a perspective, then at least you are part of the transition slash change. Right? If someone's giving you advice, they have no idea what they're doing, don't listen to them. And again, listen, right? It's listen, listen, listen. It's always hear what people have to say. Don't listen to them, only listen to yourself. And if somebody's offering you a perspective, then they're including you, right? And let's look at it from the simplest form. Let's move it from the simplest form. If I were to... what's the difference between advice and perspective? Perspective is basically an outlook. And if I'm going to give you my perspective, I'm including you in the conversation because I'm telling you, or I'm actually like translating to you my perspective, or translating my perspective in a way that you could actually understand, connect with, build around, right? Translate, whatever the case is. So the idea is the actual, like, is the subjective approach to each individual's worlds. So let me use an example between me and my grandfather once. And I don't know what I was doing in the garden. I was like 9, 10 years old maybe. And I remember my mom dropped me with him, and I kind of like was playing around and helping him, right? You fucking cunts, like little assholes. How am I helping a guy? But effectively what happened was, I remember he came to me because I was watering maybe the plants or something, and he was like, you don't water the tomatoes that way. And then basically, like, I asked him why. It was like, I'm throwing water at the plants. And I remember he stopped, he goes like, anywhere the tomato receives water, it grows roots. And then the minute he said that, it kind of like shifts my actions from what I am doing, which is watering the plant, to the water receiving, basically, to the plant receiving water. So it no longer became about what I was actually giving, it became about the person or whatever was receiving. And I feel advice kind of happens in the same way. Because what effectively happens is like, if I were you, I would do this, this, and that. Yeah, okay, amazing. But like, no. That did not create any new context for me, right? Did not create a new mental design, right? A new adjustment to the reality that kind of like exists. It doesn't do any of that shit. It's just kind of like, here's something to work with. And in a way, you can look at advice as mini tools. What was it? You want a piece of advice? Do this, not that. And that's basically how advice goes. There's always kind of like, it comes with instructions. Correct? And so when you're giving instructions, we don't really like take into consideration the way the other person functions and the way they process for these instructions to fit. My favorite stories are basically friends that have drama with their kind of like, their kind of like counterparts. And one of my favorite stories was a guy that was pissed off because the woman was basically turning her, she was like blocking him on the phone, shutting the phone in his face. He's not a friend, he was just a taxi driver I was with. And I remember looking at him and wanting to be like, you shouldn't be with somebody like that. But how can you say that, right? Like, the person's kind of like in love or whatever those feel in anxiety, whatever those feelings are. But I looked at him. I remember I asked him a question, and I remember I asked him, how does it feel when she kind of turns the phone off in your face? And he responds with, I feel like I get slapped in the face. And then I remember like looking at him going like, I would never want anyone to slap me in the face. And then he's kind of like slowed down while he was driving, and he turned around and looked at me and was like, what the fuck did he do? Right? Because ultimately from that moment, he will never be able to see a shutting the phone in his face any other way but being bitch slapped, right? I don't know what happened between them. But I remember he kind of like, talked a bit about, he actually was able to elaborate on more than just kind of like the drama, on basically how it came to be and why and all that stuff. If I had given it advice, I would have been like, don't talk to women like that. Nobody would take that. When somebody gives you advice, they don't consider the commitments you've done. They don't consider the energy you've invested. Again, I'm using relationships, but I really want you to imagine this is subjective things. Relationships are subjective. But what about, why do you tend to listen to your boss more than you tend to listen to some random dude, right? About business, for example, or about marketing or management or finance, or why would I have a friend of mine that listens more to lab basically associates than to doctors, because like lab associates tend to kind of like research and not necessarily have their own opinions. So they discuss things scientifically and allow for the process of understanding to take place, to take root in your own reality. So it is funny because I feel like creating context, that perspective, does develop trust between you and the other person. So advice kind of like fits somewhere, right? But it also gives you reassurance that if somebody's sharing a perspective with you, that means they're looking at the same world just from a different way. And if you're not succeeding, it's because the way you're looking is not necessarily like leading to success, right? And so from one side there's this, and the other side there's trust me, bro, right? That trust me, bro approach, I guess. That's people giving advice, is a trust me, bro approach. When somebody's giving you advice, don't listen to them because they have no idea what they're doing. Normally people that give you advice, well, most of the time, people when they're giving you advice based on where they failed. But like, giving advice based on where they failed does not necessarily mean their advice would lead to your success, right? So is it really advice? I'm not sure. But a perspective is the way they failed, the way they saw the world, the way everything contributed to where they are. All of these become the pieces that kind of restructure how you look at what you need attention on. Yeah. I would love looking at how others see the world. Looking at how others see the world is definitely, it allows you to shift from where you're looking to somewhere in between where they're looking. That is the whole, I see things differently now. That means I will do things differently now. That is that. It's a video. Thank you.